In certain circles, Ty Haney needs no introduction. She became an icon for many millennial women, a champion of making movement fun through Outdoor Voices, the activewear brand she founded 12 years ago when she was only 23. She was a mainstay in the conversation about D2C apparel brands and saw huge success raising capital and turning Outdoor Voices, or OV as it was widely known, into the coveted uniform for active living. Ty left OV in 2020. She took a beat and went on to start 2 new projects. One is called Joggy, and it's a better-for-you energy drink. Think like a healthier Red Bull. And she also started a brand loyalty platform called TYB, short for Try Your Best. In this conversation, we talk a lot about loyalty and TYB and how Ty used community to grow Outdoor Voices. There's lots to learn from her time there, and she shares thoughts about where loyalty is going and how to do it better. But there's something else we don't talk about that I want you to notice. Ty is a wizard at creating worlds through her words. Even the name TYB. Years ago at South by Southwest, I heard her talk on a panel about that tagline, Try Your Best. It was a team rallying cry that she would use back in her OV days, and she has a story that it's something her mom used to say to her when she was a kid. Throughout this interview, you'll hear her use catchphrases and branded names, whether it's calling the original OV ambassadors doers, which reminds us that the tagline for OV was simply doing things, or referring to TYB as community commerce, or using the rhyming pairing of brands and fans when she talks about what TYB does. Everything has a memorable name. Shared language creates belonging, and having ownable language is what creates cult brands. And it's something I wished I had asked her about when we talked, but I think you're going to learn simply by observing the master at work. So take a listen. When I reached Ty, she was in Colorado, where she lives now, and she was taking a pause from the stables where she rides. So it's fitting that she kicked things off with a horse metaphor when I asked her what she's been up to since her days at OV.
We've been off to the races. Yeah, I left Outdoor Voices about 5 years ago now, and initially had been working on a concept called Joggy. I'll give you a little detail there and then get into TYB, but I have 2 new companies, Joggy and TYB. TYB stands for Try Your Best. It's a fan engagement tool, and then Joggy is a clean energy brand. So think like the next gen Red Bull, but with clean, better for you ingredients. Anyway, came off of OV and took some time to figure out really kind of what the next steps were. I've started working on Joggy because during my startup life or first iteration of it, I drank a lot of Red Bull. And as you click into the ingredients, it's like that's not a recipe for longevity in the long run, or energy in the long run. And so that first year just started working with a team of scientists, figuring out kind of where the most premium caffeine that was plant-based and organic came from. And we found it, and we've now packaged it into a can. But as I started thinking about the go-to-market for Joggy, TYB, which is now an engagement tool and rewards app, came to the forefront. And really, I recognized that in a lot of ways, brands are underutilizing their most valuable asset, their superfans, their most obsessed and high-value customers, as a growth mechanism. And so this wasn't new to me because at Outdoor Voices, we had a super engaged, passionate, enthusiastic ambassador group. They were called doers. They were essentially like our community members meets micro-influencers, etc., but they really contributed in a big way, and at the end of the day became our most productive growth channel. And I'll get into specifics there, but that led me to really becoming excited about creating a platform for brands to directly connect with and incentivize their fans for helping them grow, and ultimately for that tool to be a win-win both on the fan and brand side, in that you're keeping your fans more loyal and kind of growing their value over time, but incentivizing them along the way where they really feel bought in and like they have stake in the brand that they're obsessed with. So TYB is an engagement and rewards app, and then Joggy is a drink, and they've both kept me very busy.
Yeah, I bet. I work in the brand world, and I often get the question about what's going to be the ROI on brand work. And I've started saying that loyalty is the number one measurement of brand work. Like that's how you can actually calculate if your brand work is a success. But I think that it is totally undervalued by a lot of brands for some reason. And I see that, like, especially as we go into tougher economics times, keeping those fans engaged is going to be the easiest way to keep your brand, you know, like relevant and profitable.
100%. I think like the first wave of D2C, which OV was very much a part of, like there was ample cash or ability to raise money easily. And then like with that came this like mandate to grow at all costs. And so really like that 10-year period was about how much can we, spend in a reasonable price to acquire customers. But as you click into the data around customers that you're acquiring through Instagram or Facebook or these paid customers, they're not the ones that stick with you. And so that ends up being a model that requires a ton of capital. And it's again, like not a recipe for a good business in the long run. And so I felt that firsthand in a lot of ways at Outdoor Voices, while we also had this very evidence of a very engaged kind of loyal group that, bought multiple times over. I'd say the pain point in that experience was we had a 10,000 or more person strong ambassador program, but it was really operationally challenging to orchestrate. Because, for instance, this group would come upstream into product development type processes and help pick colorways or give insights on a line plan. They'd create high quality content. They'd host kind of on a local level different activations kind of in support of our mission as a brand to move, which was beautiful and wonderful, but operationally really hard to do across a variety of channels. And then most importantly, really hard to measure. And so I'd be sitting in a boardroom and say, this is ultimately like, it should be our growth strategy, community, commerce, lean into community all the way. But we weren't able to connect the dots to ultimately like make it behave in a growth channel type way where you could look at the return on investment if I put budget against this community effort. And so with TYB, we've really been able to solve for that and make community something that's measurable with an ROI.
Tell me how it works. So like it's a Web3 play. Like I know that was kind of front and center. Has that evolved?
Yeah, I became really curious about crypto and blockchain, mostly because of the ability to own assets on the internet.
Yeah.
And so, like, at the end of the day, or maybe today, at the end of this day, my belief is that the future of brand building will be two-part. It'll be about co-creation. So, like, bringing your super fans, those obsessed with you, into the evolution of the brand as active participants. They feel bought in. They often have really great insights and feedback. And then incentivization. And so, ways to reward people, again, for being kind of loyal over time. And in the like early innings of TYB, blockchain felt like a very interesting technology to apply here. It's still very much part of our technology, but not the full thing. Yeah. And so, for instance, tying Joggy back into it, Joggy was an owned brand, but our first that we got to experiment with the platform. And so what we did was we introduced Joggy Doggy, which is our mascot, as a collectible, which equaled your membership into the community. And it lives on chain. It's effectively your membership pass and then gives you access to the Joggy community on TYB, where you're leveling up to unlock perks. And so we don't talk about blockchain really, but there, I think over time are ways to really create more valuable scenarios between brands and fans, like focused on brand fan incentivization, with that as a technology purely through the lens of being able to own a piece of a brand as a fan.
Yeah. So the blockchain's kind of in the background, powering it. What's the customer experience like, or even the brand experience? How are they managing it? How are they thinking about incentives and engaging
of course.
Customers?
We've created this TYB game. And so brands pay us to use the game and engage their fans in this automated engagement game or campaign. And so really what like the sequencing is a brand says, join our membership, join our community. Different brands use different terminology. From social, from all their channels, they invite them in. Same kind of process as Joggy. The fan unlocks a membership collectible. It spins up their ID within that community. And then they're able to engage with our core engagement mechanism called a challenge. And so there are many flavors of challenges, but the brand gets to choose from different templates, create series with challenges, all things that as brand builders we know like are valuable actions for brands. Collecting content, getting reviews, hosting or showing up to events, giving feedback, all of this type of engagement is now easily promptable within the TYB toolkit and then automatically rewarded as users take action. And so what's quite cool is when I talk game, you enter at level 1. As you complete these challenges, you're earning coins and you're progressively earning your way up into level 2, level 3. And the way that the tool works is it allows the brand to select inventory or perks that based on your level, you automatically unlock. And really, why this works well, and we'll get to the ROI piece, is we integrate with Shopify. And so we're able to, from a data perspective, allow the brand to come into their dashboard and see, as I engage my community in this way, so community members, how does that behavior from a dollars perspective compared to non-members? And so what we really see take off is frequency of purchase when you engage your community in this way increases significantly, which leads to higher LTR or LTV.
Yeah. But from what I understand, it's not like the perks or the rewards aren't just discounts or aren't just dollars. Like there's more that you're kind of engaging people a little bit more holistically.
Yeah, 100%. Users can take their coins that they earn and then redeem them for a code or discount code as they'd be familiar with. We've done a lot of work on the reward economy, which means it's like each brand comes in and they have a dynamic reward economy based on their AOV. So what that means at the end of the day is like, what is the max redemption possible by your level? And ultimately that's important as we think about making this win-win or something that actually drives dollars for brands, but value for fans. You can create all sorts of things as perks. And so it could be a piece of, or an inventory or SKU from your Shopify that you automatically give to level 2 members. It could be a chat channel. For instance, Rare Beauty has a specific gated channel that as people have leveled up, only those people who are part of that level get to communicate. There's all sorts of events, for instance, can be a perk, an airdrop, which is a collectible, for instance. So it's quite fun and game-like in terms of thinking of all the different options that can be kind of the carrot at the end of driving an action.
Yeah. And you've kind of streamlined a lot of work for these brand marketers or e-com managers because they're not having to constantly think like, what are the things that are going to engage my audience? What are the rewards that are going to be meaningful? Because it's kind of built into the platform.
100%. Yeah. The integration with Shopify is a big deal because anything physical product related is automated like when that action is completed within the tool. So for instance, we have TYB Shop, which essentially ports in a selection of your inventory into the social channel or into the app. And you can drop products early to your community members. You can drop exclusive to community products, but it literally takes less than 5 minutes to set up with Shopify. So we have a very close integration with them in the same way we do with Klaviyo. I like to think of TYB almost as the context layer around the shopping surface, and that as all of these users are taking action, the brands are taking that data and putting it into a consumer or community file that then is integrated to Klaviyo. And so community commerce really is this trifecta of Klaviyo, Shopify, TYB, really powering kind of this social or community-led revenue generation.
How branded of an experience is it for me, the end consumer? Like how much am I seeing TYB versus Rare Beauty, for example?
It's funny because early innings, there was pushback on the brand side because the brands are like comfortable with white labeled loyalty programs. And like, I very much was insistent on when we can make one portal into rewards and relationships from your favorite brands through TYB, you're going to see a lot more engagement, which is ultimately what drives that value over time. I don't think, or like, it's hard to remember the last time I'm like going to the parade site to check in on how many parade coins I have.
No.
So like, in my view, I very much believe what's better for the user ends up being better for the brand. And so white label has become a non-issue because of the engagement that we're able to show that ultimately connects to revenue. We have over 50% monthly active users. And so by far, this is the most engaged channel that any brand has as you look across social plus.
For sure. So you are absolutely the right person to do this because I would say you were one of the pioneers of a certain model of community building through your time at Outdoor Voices. And you talked a little bit about it at the top, but I'd love to hear more about how you did it. I mean, it was such a magical era of technical apparel. I vividly remember making a pilgrimage to the Soho shop to get my first pair of tights.
Thank
and
you.
Being the Vancouver girl with a pair of OV tights came with a certain status because we didn't have it here, and ordering from the US was a challenge. So it really it felt like we were making a statement when we had them. And
I love it.
I think community was such a big part of that. There was a cool factor associated to it.
Yeah.
Tell me how you did it, and what are you super proud of from your time at OV?
Yeah, 100%. We had a strategy that was just very obvious to me from a mission standpoint. So, I'd say, emotionally, we were able to connect with people who had forever seen, the Nikes of the world that were all about performance and being fastest. And, so our initial positioning of freeing fitness from performance and really leaning into doing things and inspiring people to move their bodies on a daily basis for the fun of it, that struck a nerve. And then the way we brought that to life, ultimately, sealed the deal. And so for a movement brand, it's just natural to activate IRL, with groups of people doing movement. And so I think everyone and their mother does that now. And it felt obvious to me at the time. And we started very small. And I remember our first and second offices were in New York. And we'd literally have a kind of value within the team that it starts with us. And so we knew this mission, we had this product, how are we going to bring it to life and get people obsessed with it? Let's start doing jog clubs, run clubs, dog walks. Let's get out there into the field and be quite guerrilla marketing about it. But it started with us. So it was always authentic in that way. Authentic isn't even something a term that comes up for me. It's just the way that we do things. But I think that's a good example. For instance, when we moved to the Canal Street office, it was a team probably of 12 at the time. And on Fridays, our ritual was to go down the street to the basketball hoops, and at lunch we'd play. I remember our first New York Times article was literally a picture of the 10 or 12 team members in our basketball gear. And that was just very much, I don't know, a little souvenir of then what took off, which was very counterintuitive to everything D2C and that everything was going online and we're acquiring customers online. Rather, we did the opposite, which was activate IRL and then amplify through digital and social. And we got pretty big fast by acting small. So on a local level, gathering 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 people, over time that compounded and happening kind of in parallel across different locations, very much became big because of the social lift. So anyway, that was kind of the early inning strategy.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite activations that you did with your community over the years?
Yeah, I mean, the most recent one, or the last big one, was around the exercise dress, which was my baby. And
your legacy lives on.
I love it so much. And we essentially brought kind of our super fans, our closest customers. It'd be amazing if we had our community on TYB at the time, because you literally can measure who is most obsessed. Proof of fan is a big deal. But we brought 1,000 of our best customers to Lincoln Center and programmed it like a big dance party with all of the new colors. I forget if it was the actual launch or new colors of the exercise dress. Either way, we outfitted all of our best fans in the new exercise dress and then had this massive dance party with 1,000 people. And similarly, it was this IRL connection that was, you had to be there, but then people got to experience it, and it quite literally looked like this movement that you wanted to be part of. So that very much felt like such a cool expression of the brand to me. And then a few years prior, which is quite funny, we hosted an OV dog jog. And this was in Austin at a nonprofit golf course or something called Muni. And it was our version of a 5K rec race. And so we sold tickets to 800 dogs and their parents, and had dog influencers and essentially a spectacle or experience at the end with local television and spa stuff for your dogs and embroidery on whatever, a proper event. But it was a 5K OV dog jog, sold tickets, and at the start you had kind of the race arc, etc., but two of our team members had dressed up in cat costumes, and they kicked us off, and then you just saw this wave of people and their dogs running. It was the coolest thing ever.
Chasing the cat.
And so yeah, chasing the cats. That certainly felt very much an OV format. And we were really good at I call it like zigging when they zag. Like there's so much, even today, like, or more so today, there's so much sameness in terms of the way brands bring their product to life. And I think we were uniquely good at like zeroing in on what we were able to do in a very differentiated way. And like people very much wanted to be part of that.
Yeah. Not to underestimate the amount of work it takes to pull off events like those two you just mentioned, but both of them, the common theme that I see is that they're really simple concepts. Yeah. Like you get them right away and they're super scalable. Like
totally.
800. I mean, also how chaotic was $800?
I mean, fortunately we got through that one.
Yeah. What do you think was the recipe for a really good activation if you could codify it?
I think of community building with 4 parts, and like I've had to think about the playbook here a lot because now TYB like allows other brands to tap into this like way of thinking. But the framework for me is a very clearly articulated mission. Like what's the reason for being? What are people like there to do? Then it's rituals for activation, and that could be like, it doesn't have to be activity. Like, and I think that's where beauty like really gets this right, because you're using it every day. There's master classes, etc. But like determining what your rituals for activation are, I think connection. So bringing people together where they can connect over common interests or obsession, and then like that makes the brand so much bigger than just you. And then the 4th piece is incentivization. Yeah. And I think like, as you think about influencer today, I very much see us heading in a direction where influencers being democratized, and so like the best brands are going to really lean into their customers as influencers. And that 4th piece, incentivization, you know, at scale you need an effective or automated way to do that in a reliable and kind of reasonable way, which again ties back to TYB. But those 4 things for me are the formula for community building, or, you know, creating that enthusiasm through a community.
Yeah. You really captured an arc that I think I've seen in the world of like ambassadors and influencers. So when you were starting out, it was more of a traditional ambassador model, probably. Like you were probably handpicking really engaged people from your community who were doing things and, you know, rewarding them and giving them responsibility and having them show up for events. Yeah. And then it feels like things went in a totally like heightened direction where you have these super highly paid influencers and it's only about the content that they're putting out onto their social channels, and you know, they're getting paid a minimum of like a 6-figure payment just for a single spot. But it feels like it's coming back to that democratization where you have this bigger army of customer influencers. Does that feel accurate? What are you seeing?
Yeah, 100%. I think like the phasing to me, and maybe a little unrelated to Outdoor Voices, but there was D2C where like early innings, there weren't enough brands for it to be all that expensive to like acquire customers through Instagram, etc. So that like wave certainly had its time, and then it became prohibitively expensive. And I almost think then that's when you started to see like this investment rather in the creator instead of like directly through Meta. That still happens today, but like into the creator became the biggest thing. And now like that's too expensive. So you're not seeing essentially the value equation prove out when you pay that large of sum to one person. So there's certainly this shift to micro influencer, and then like drilling down even more so into customer. And that is what we initially did with Outdoor Voices, which made, I guess, that feel so strong. In our case, it's funny because I'm thinking through, like, getting someone to a run club on a Saturday morning, that's like high friction and hard. So the people who like get there actually really care, and those are like the top referrers for us, or were, versus like going to a margarita party, you know what I mean? So like I often think about the right amount of friction for like fans to like prove that they're really kind of the loyal ones, that then are the ones that should also be rewarded and given perks, etc.
Yeah, it's almost like you don't want to make it too easy to show up for an event, because those are the people that just dip in and then dip out.
Exactly.
They get what they came for, which was maybe a free drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to be invested. Yeah, obviously all this like solid foundation of learnings for TYB. What are the other things that you think your time at OV brought to bear on starting this new business?
I think like this new phase for me has really been just focused on ownership. And so I look back at Outdoor Voices just as like a 23-year-old girl, like on a trajectory to become a brand and businesswoman. And there was a lot to learn. And I think it was 8 years of like fast and furious growth.
In the public spotlight. So
yeah, which is awesome.
Your highs and your lows.
Yeah. 90% of it was amazing. 10% was brutally painful. But a lot of, like, I distill it to ownership at the end of the day. Because we were able to raise money easily, like, that was cool. But then you look at the cap table, and this was all new to me, and you get diluted and ultimately lose control. And so I have been a lot more thoughtful about, like, the structure of the business from truly, like, what equals control, and ownership equals control. And so I'm grateful I can tie a bow on those 8 years and even, like, the brutalness of the last one, because it's made me so much more precise and specific about who I want to essentially build with, and then what's at stake if you don't, like, really be focused on ownership, cap table, dilution, and minimizing dilution, etc. So ownership really kind of has become a main theme of this kind of chapter 2 or next phase of my life.
Wow. I feel like I could dive a lot deeper into that. But I'm going to bring us back to the topic of loyalty. Because like I said, I see so much value in loyalty, and it shocks me how many brands don't have any sort of loyalty or membership program.
Yeah.
Or they don't even, or maybe they have one, but they're not really shining a spotlight on it.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's an afterthought sometimes?
I think loyalty, like traditional loyalty programs, are ineffective. And like the end user doesn't want to engage with them, and therefore they're not driving value. And so for whatever reason, there's been like a few options on the table, but they're very traditional. It's like, buy something, we'll give you points. It's like not very imaginative. Yeah. And so what we've really introduced with what I call new loyalty, which was like our first wedge or like use case with TYB, is extending what it means to be the definition of a loyal customer. Not to just include what you've purchased with me, but also all of the engagement. And obviously that's something that needs to be measurable, trackable, and like considered within kind of that new definition. So like honestly, traditional loyalty programs have been boring, and as you click into the data, they're ineffective. We just transitioned our 28th brand off of Yotpo.
Wow.
And which is exciting, but ultimately for me, like that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. What role do you think brand plays? Because if I'm thinking about loyalty programs, like every once in a while I'll get an email from some brand that maybe I made one purchase from telling me I have like 100 points that I need to spend. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, like I just don't care about that company because they maybe have not done any investment into brand. So like how do you ensure that the companies you're working with are actively building their brand while they're building this platform?
Yeah. We're lucky in that a lot of the like most brands with most heat or just like evidence of people caring about them like have come to use this tool. And so like the Rare Beauties of the world, the Glossiers, like we've been very fortunate that the best brands have come to use TYB. I wouldn't say that all brands do it well, and like using the tool it's an automated game, but it needs to be filled with like unique concepts and like ways to engage that are like correct for the brand. So there are brands that probably like wouldn't be able to use TYB and be more effective.
Right.
It really does still require kind of like that, that brand creativity to like power.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, as we look into the data, on average across TYB, users have 4.4 brands that they're part of. And so what is quite cool is like I almost think of it as like the starter pack, or like viewing into someone's, let's say, purse or wallet. Like you're picking the 5 brands you're most obsessed with, and then like deepening your engagement with them. Yeah. Versus I think on social, it's like I'm going to follow everyone. Do I really want to like go that deep with that many? No. And so this is very much about depth versus breadth in this experience. And I think that's required because there's just so many brands today.
There are so many. Maybe building on that, what are you and your team learning as you get more brands onboarded to TYB? Like, where do you see people leaving money on the table, or maybe like what levers should they be all pulling that they might not be?
Yeah, 100%. You're talking on the brand side, correct?
Yeah.
Like what brands are, yeah. It's interesting because we started in loyalty or retention, and now this year we'll have 2 million like high-value Gen Z, mostly female users on platform, which is quite cool. So like we're starting to see discovery like become quite effective. And so I think most brands, or like many, particularly like finance teams or like financially minded business leaders, like still have this block around community being an effective growth channel. And so that's what I see that we're up against often is like you get in with maybe the community or social lead like saw us and then like brought it to their head of e-com or whatever, their head of growth. And like we're right now bridging kind of and figuring out how to bridge into terms that really get those people excited because they've written off community for so many years. So I think underestimating community as a growth channel, which now TYB can do, and it really can become 10 to 15% of your revenue. And we're seeing that prove out with brands on platform.
Yeah, that's amazing because often, you talk to people that maybe are on market teams or community teams, and they'll often say, I was actually in a workshop yesterday with people who are amazing at this, like former Lululemon community builders who would say, like, it's not about monetary ROI. You can't calculate monetary ROI. It sounds like with TYB, maybe actually you can.
Yeah.
But most community builders would say, like, don't have that at the forefront as you're planning your activity. How do you think about that?
I think that's exactly the bridge that we're building because and a lot of times like the social or community lead like sees TYB and the best brands using TYB and then they bring that head of growth in and what the tool unlocks and really like the best brands of the future are going to bring the left and right kind of hands and brains together. Like this allows those two groups, the brand marketing and the growth teams, to like work in lockstep with one another or really understand kind of the value of each other. And so making community measurable really has been ultimately like the holy grail of this product. And we're uniquely able to do that because of our access to the Shopify data.
Yeah. Who do you think is doing an amazing job of it?
Yeah, Glossier. I mean, I love that Glossier is on platform. Cleo Mack, the CMO, we actually before I departed from OV, we were going to bring her in and then that happened. But she has been the CMO and took a bet on us early innings, but they are just perfectly primed for this. And our tool has just integrated into the way that they engage kind of around 360 campaigns, etc. beautifully. So we just were on with the team recently and they were walking us through kind of the integration of the tool for the next 3 months, and all of us just were like, oh my God, it's happening.
Well, I mean, not to give anything away about what's coming down the line, but what have they done that you think has been especially effective? I
mean, the always on engagement. So 10 challenges a week is best practice. And they're extremely good at making those perfect for engaging, entertaining, and nurturing kind of these fans down the funnel through the challenges. And then they have specific moments, they've made their stickers collectibles. So you can get a sticker in the store, but they've made it a collectible. And so if you're a TYB member that goes into a store within a specific amount of time, you unlock that collectible, it lives in your wallet on TYB and becomes kind of a bragging right type thing. And then we have an upcoming IRL activation that will be going live around a new product for them in the summer. And we're essentially powering the TYB member experience within that larger activation, with and kind of co-creating that with Glossier. So it's very dynamic, but they just get it. It's quite cool.
Yeah. I mean, and they are a perfect fit example. Mm-hmm. How many people from the Glossier side does it take to keep something like that alive?
Just one. I mean, they bring more people into it because they're a larger organization, but this is a pretty easy tool and it really becomes kind of what you make of it. But there's for most brands, it's one person 3 to 5 hours a week to really run it.
Yeah. So a lot of the brands, if you look at the TYB website, or even if I'm thinking about Joggy, which you're currently drinking for those that can't see you, a lot of the brands that you work with are consumables. So it's the repeat buy, you really know that those customers are coming back. Yeah. Do you think that apparel can see the same success with this approach?
Yeah, it's a good question. Set Active is one of our first apparel brands. Lindsay, Kira, and Elle are amazing. they are similar to OV in that they have that movement and kind of fitness piece baked in, so that ritual for activity again is alive and well. I think it's obvious the beauty category like really has popped off for us for reasons like you're describing, but we are seeing the more lifestyle and kind of fashion categories have interest in the tool. It's still early innings. We've gone live with Urban Outfitters, and they've been really successful, just focused on kind of an ambassador group. But really, back to kind of that 4-part framework, like I almost for any brand could say you can create a ritual that connects to your mission and activates the product nicely. I'm trying to think of one that wouldn't. Like Casper beds maybe would be more difficult because you're not buying that often, but they certainly have accessories and things around it. But yeah, we have some really big, more lifestyle brands going live that I'm obsessed with and can't wait to be on platform this upcoming quarter.
Yeah, awesome. Here's something I've been thinking about lately. So at the start of the pandemic, it was kind of the height of Black Lives Matter. It seemed like every brand was crafting a DEI policy and defining their values, posting black squares, and generally taking a stance for some belief. That's one example. And now it feels like we're almost going through this like de-brandification of a lot of brands. Everyone's kind of stepping away from politics, or maybe not speak of politics, but stepping away from having a point of view. But I think community and brand building sort of inherently requires having a point of view. So how does TYB think about or approach that with your customers in a time when having a perspective can feel risky or divisive?
I think brands don't have to have a perspective on everything. Like they need to keep the main thing, and that's probably what I've seen shored up within kind of the brand and business building community, probably in the correct way, in that like there was a period in time where like everybody collectively was highly sensitive. Yeah. And so like there was a lot of concern that if I don't like go also have a perspective on this thing, like that could be detrimental. But I think like at the end of the day, that's too many focuses when you're like running a business needing to make great product and make money. And so I've noticed, and I'm excited about more of a focus on the fundamentals and like a singular focus on doing one thing really well. And if you're in the brand building and product creation space, it's making great product and, you know, making sure that experience for your customers is exceptional and then doing it in a way where you can make money. So,
and I guess tying that product to a passion of your consumers, and that passion doesn't have to be political or divisive or speak to every single thing that's happening in culture right now.
Totally. Same page.
Yeah. We've probably overdone it in the past and trying to be everything to our audience. And it's just like, we don't have to be their news source. We don't have to be their political ally. Like we can just be the place where they get amazing energy drinks that they can feel good about.
I think like focus and doing one thing exceptionally well like is something I'm seeing more and more that I think is a strong path for the future.
Yeah. So where are you and the brand heading next? What are you really excited about that's on the horizon?
With Joggy or TYB or me, or which part?
How about all of the above? Whatever feels most present.
Of course. Yes. Let's see. Where are we heading? We're really replatforming loyalty with TYB, and I call kind of what we do community commerce. And so we have massive momentum there, and that's like where I spend most of my time. We also have an exceptional team that's based out of SF. It's pretty funny going from software spelled with a W-E-A-R to like now software as a tech product. There's certainly been a learning curve, but I think the best position to be in is building software, like the tech product, to solve for a pain point you had personally. So it's off to the races. We just raised a round, and like every week we have at least 5 notable brands going live. So really kind of maximizing members and logos on platform to really create this community commerce and turn it on is my full focus. Yeah. And then Joggy is kind of my side project. But more than that now, we've just put a team around it, have an awesome COO, funded it, and we just went into 900 targets. And so
wow,
the dynamic is alive and well. We're doing a lot.
Yeah. So you're now, I guess, a tech founder, a tech CEO, but I think, when I listen to you, at your heart, you're a brand person, you're a marketer, like you really understand how consumers think. When you look at the broader marketing and brand landscape, who do you love to follow? Who do you think is killing it? Where do you find inspiration? And maybe bigger picture, where do you think marketing is heading?
Let's see, who am I inspired by? There's a little magazine, I don't know how little they are, but like I find whatever they post to be very compelling. It's called Outlander magazine, and they have their pulse very much on just what's so cool. I think like excellent product and like maniacal focus on excellent product that like stands the test of time, like still really stands out to me. Yesterday I was looking at USM Holler Furniture, if you're familiar.
No.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how old the company is. It's got to be old, but like they've had the same look forever and it's still so sexy. So like this USM Holler Furniture, I used to have it in my Outdoor Voices office. I think I'll probably get it for Joggy, maybe TYB, but just like the product speaks for itself. We're almost like marketing and that fluff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with Acne Studios. I think they're just like deliciously creative, and like I think expression and just like zigging when people zag is so refreshing. I also see this trend, and it's kind of I guess a funny story back to OV, but just like dogs are everywhere. The first time we merchandised a collection on our site called dog walking instead of like running or like fitness, like there was a whole Reddit subreddit like explosion around these people are crazy, which was like the best news ever. But dog walking and dogs are like so central to branding and product and marketing today. We have the Joggy doggy as our mascot at Joggy, but like even at Fashion Week, whatever, a few seasons ago, like Best in Show was alive and well. So I expect to see more like continued kind of focus on dogs and pets and just spirit animals in a sense. What do I think for the future? I think it's about, like, at the end of the day, we're, like, building businesses. And sometimes, like, both, I guess, the business owner and the brands maybe in particular forget that. Like, for a brand to be around and continue to surprise and delight and make great product, like, we have to make money. And so my kind of momentum is my and my team's theme, but, like, make money, have fun is, like, the period of life that I'm in, and, like, fully focused on making money and having a great time making things that we're obsessed with and others are obsessed with. But that kind of ties back to, like, I'm much more comfortable now, like, really with a focus on making money and, like, being a businesswoman.
Yeah, we don't get into business to not make money.
Yeah, 100%.
It's too much risk and too much energy
to
not have that as an outcome. You might 100%. Have other goals, but it's okay to want to make 100%. Money through your endeavors.
Yes.
Okay, a couple more questions for you. What is your favorite piece of brand or marketing advice to give?
I mean, at the end of the day, nothing matters unless your product is really good.
Yeah.
Like, I very much believe that. I think zigging when they zag is real and, like, is something that consistently should be a track that you're kind of thinking through. And then my third thing, as I think about, like, my go-to-market framework, it's really about creating consistent moments or making moments, this consistent drumbeat of moments that build the momentum. And you're like connecting dots, and ultimately it's not like one thing overnight, but it's like this consistent rhythm and muscle building and doing your reps like at a gym that ultimately allow you to feel big and feel impactful and have a large kind of set of customers at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, last question for you. Where's the best place for people to follow your journey online?
Amazing. Join TYB. Download the app. You can join TYB on TYB, which is a community. You can join Joggy. My username is Ty. Somehow, someone got Ty before me. I'm gonna have to go pay them for that or something. That's embarrassing. But then also Ty Haney on Instagram, and we are starting to do a lot more content. So follow along, and I hope to entertain you.
Amazing. Ty, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Tyler Haney, CEO and co-founder of TYB and co-founder of Joggy. My Best Campaign is produced by Monday Creative and hosted by me, Amanda Lee Smith. Our sound engineer is Andrew Bagaspas, and our theme music is by Stephen Cowley. We're always interested in hearing the stories behind your great campaigns. So if you're a CMO, a VP of brand or marketing, or a founder with a story, email me at amanda@mondaycreative.co. And if you're listening along and want to hear more of these conversations, then follow us on your favorite podcast app, tell your marketing friends about us, and keep track of new episodes on Instagram at mondaycreative.co.